Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Liz Kruger, State Senator. Welcome to our webinar for the evening titled Don't Get Scammed, Learn How to Protect Yourself. As always, we have closed captioning available for this evening's event. Please know you must activate closed captioning to view the text on your device. If you're watching us through Zoom, click on live transcript in the meeting controls to start viewing closed captioning. And if you're on Facebook Live, you will see a settings button on the bottom right-hand corner of the video. Click on CC for closed caption to activate the process. This forum is being recorded, and everyone who RSVP'd will receive an email with links to the event video and the resources that are posted in the chat within a few days, along with the presenters' PowerPoints. So you're going to be getting a lot of information tonight, but don't think you have to write everything down because we're going to be forwarding it to you afterwards. Scams are getting more and more sophisticated. My office hears from many of you all the time. Everyone either has or knows someone who has fallen victim. The issue is not being embarrassed that you got caught up in a scam. It's rather knowing what you can do to help resolve the problem as quickly as possible. Scammers use state-of-the-art techniques and know how to prey on our vulnerabilities. But with the right information and knowledge about what some of the key scam components are, we can all protect ourselves. This evening, you will be hearing from experts about the newest scams, preventive measures to keep your personal information safe, and available resources to report scams and find support. We have multiple experts that we'll be hearing from. First, we will hear from Jeanine Launay, Chief of Elder Abuse Unit at the New York County District Attorney's Office, who will talk about the basic elements of the scam process and why they're working. Next, we will hear from Detective Anthony Nuccio, the Crime Prevention Officer at the 19th Precinct, who will tell us about the most common scams. We've worked with Detective Nuccio any number of times, and he has been very, very helpful. And our last speaker is Kathleen Benedetti-Fisher, an AARP scam expert, who will be sharing information about protecting yourself from being scammed and finding support if you need it. And each person after they present is then going to introduce the person coming after that. And then when all three have presented, I'll be coming back on with all of the guests, and we'll have an opportunity to go through your questions. Many of you have already submitted questions even before we started tonight, but if new ones come to you as you're hearing the presentation, please feel free to type those questions into the Q&A box. And sometimes you might actually get an answer immediately. And sometimes we will try to get to your question when we get to the Q&A period after all the presentations. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeanine Launay, Chief of Elder Abuse Unit at the New York County District Attorney's Office. Good evening, Jeanine, and thank you for being with us.
Good evening, Senator Kruger. Nice to be here.
Great. Take it away.
Thank you. We're going to pull up a PowerPoint. So, hi, I'm Jeanine Launay. I'm the Chief of the Elder Abuse Unit at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And we want to talk a little bit about how scams work and who are the targets. So if we can go to the next slides. So who are the scammers targeting? On one hand, they do target everyone. They want to get as much money as they possibly can from as many people as they can. But older adults, the scammers think, may have retirement income, may have savings, probably do have Social Security, and may have good credit. And scammers perceive older adults as being particularly vulnerable. So it gives them an incentive to target this particular group in particular. Next slide. So this is really underestimated numbers. The vast majority of people do not report when they have been scammed. We'll discuss why in a minute. But there's estimates that people over the age of 60 have lost 3.4 billion, and that's the ones that are reported to the FBI. and that's up 11% from 2022. And we expect the numbers for 2024 to be much higher. The FBI reported 101,000 victims that called into their lines or went online and reported, and 400,000 fraud reports were made to the FTC. The losses are really estimated to be in the billions, but we think that because of the underreporting, the number is much, much larger than this. Next slide. So here's an example of law enforcement efforts to try and see where they could find call centers. So on the left, you have a photograph of a call center, and those three pink buildings were the buildings that the people were using as call centers. And they had people there working around the clock, 7 days a week, reaching out to victims to try and run some scams. On the right is the aerial picture taken about 4 years later of the same compound. And as you can see, it has greatly expanded in scope. Some people work there voluntarily and are paid. Others are trafficked and forced to run scam on other people. They value people with multiple language skills. And we have learned about their activities from people that have escaped from these compounds and told law enforcement what's been going on. Next slide. So scams work chiefly because they strike when you are not expecting it. And they're usually coming at a place where you feel safe. Usually you're going to get a scam phone call when you're in your home having your coffee. It's going to come on your cell phone, and people associate cell phones with things that are good and nice, right? You use your cell phones to talk to your friends, to communicate with loved ones. You don't expect your cell phone to be a potential source to allow a scammer into your life. The same thing with the computer. There are pop-ups that come on the computer. You don't consider your computer to be a source of possible problems for you. So one element that they have going for them is the element of surprise. The other thing that scammers do is they appeal to strong emotions. This hijacks a portion of your brain, the portion that doesn't think but needs to act. Scammers are also willing to invest significant amounts of time building relationships with older adults. And it can really feel like a real relationship. People who have been scammed report feelings of ties towards the scammers, and often the scammers know all about their lives, their children, their interests, their likes, what they have for breakfast. They're willing to spend a lot of time cultivating a relationship so they can find out who you are, what you're afraid of, what you're interested in, and where you might have your money. They are very skilled at developing trust and then inciting fear when they need to, because if it doesn't work with the carrot, they'll use the stick. They can be relentless, they can be confusing, and they can be exhausting. We have reports of scammers that start calling people at 9 o'clock in the morning and don't stop bothering you until midnight. If you're on the phone for hours of a time with an individual who's trying to take advantage of you, they will wear you down, if only because of the exhaustion factor. Once an individual starts paying to a scammer, there's huge pressure to try and recoup that loss. The scammers are well aware of this, and they're fond of saying things like, just one more payment, or if you just do this thing, you'll get all your money back. Think of being at a casino at a slot machine. You don't want to walk away from the slot machine and let someone else take all your hard-earned money that you've put in. It's the same kind of principle with the scammers. They keep telling you, you're going to get your money back. You're going to get your money back, but they have no intention of doing that. Next slide. So bad actors try and create urgency. They usually request secrecy. They want to reinforce any feelings of loneliness and create isolation. So these are the people that are calling you morning, noon, and night. And while you're paying attention to the scammer, you're not paying attention to your friends, your relatives, your support system. The scammer becomes your life. They can be very, very charming, and they can foster dependency by the relentless texting. They can also be very frightening and intimidating. All of these things they use as tools to try and make you not think. That's the goal. The goal is to catch you off your guard and to get you not thinking, just reacting and acting. Next slide, please. Don't underestimate the scammers. We see people from all walks of life that are taken in by scammers. People think I'm too street smart to be taken in. That's not the case. I'm too educated to be taken in. That's not the case. We see people from everywhere, every religion, every walk of life. You can be taken in by a scammer. They just have to catch you at the right time. Don't underestimate them. In the best case scenario, if you try and play with the scammer and explain to him that you're on to them, you will teach them what didn't work. Let's not educate the scammers. The worst case scenario, they will talk you into something that you don't want to do. Disconnect as soon as you realize that you have a scammer on the line. Hang up, block them. Expect them to keep on trying to rein you in. Don't engage with them. The more you starve them, the less likely it is for them to come back. But expect them to be relentless because they know that their tactics work. Next slide, please. People don't report. And the scammers know this. And the scammers know exactly what buttons to push to make sure you don't report. Some people feel like they have a relationship with the person who's taking their money, and they're really, really unwilling to put that person at risk, even if it's not an individual person. A lot of people feel like they don't want to be judged, and our society does a really great job at judging people and saying terrible things about them when they've been taken in by a scam. Some people like the contact that they've had with the scammers. They occupy time in their day and they ask about their lives and they're very interested in them, and that can be very comforting. A lot of people worry about losing control of their affairs because they've been victimized. They worry that if people find out that they've been taken in as from a scammer, that someone will think that they don't have capacity to take care of their lives, that APS might be called or a guardian might be put in place, or their children might think that they don't have capacity anymore, and they don't want people to think that they're not in control of their mind and their affairs. Some people are afraid of being injured by the scammers because sometimes the scammers will threaten. A lot of people think that if they report, nothing will happen. But we're really going to urge you to report because knowledge is really the best way for us to combat this problem. A lot of people think it's going to be a long process and they just don't want to be involved. It's already been exhausting. And yes, sometimes these things can be a long process, but bear with us because it's important for us to stop the scammers as much as we can. A lot of time people think, I just don't know who to call. So we're going to give you some of these tools during this webinar. Next slide, please. So scammers are basically looking for three things: your actual money, which is a cash, the gift cards, they'll send you out to a drugstore to buy gift cards, Bitcoins, they will talk you through how to transfer your money into Bitcoins and transfer the Bitcoins into them. I had a lady tell me this was the best teacher she'd ever had. It really was too bad that it was a scammer. They want you to wire money to them. All of this is cash. If they don't want the cash, they want access to your money. And that means your bank cards, your account numbers, your credit card numbers, your EBT. So sometimes people will leave their bank statement lying on their desk while they have someone come and do a repair in the apartment. But that's very easy to take a picture of. So leaving your account information lying around or available for someone else to use can give them access to your money. The last thing that these scammers want is information. Information is very valuable. I know we're always telling you to shred your address and your name, and it's kind of a drag with all the mail that we all get. But the correct spelling of your first name, your last name, your address, your telephone number, your social security number, all of these things are valuable to scammers. Next slide, please. So how does this information become money? Well, first of all, information can be purchased. So you've all seen the hacking that goes on from all the various organizations that are hacked, and those people will sell that data out on the dark web. It's also possible for people to go up to businesses and talk to a receptionist who might not know what's going on, male or female, and say, hey, could you sell me your customer list with the names and with the telephone numbers? Other people dumpster dive. They go into the garbage and they'll pick out pieces of paper that have your first name, your last name, and your address. This information is used to make lists. So if I'm a scammer and I want to run a romance scam on men over the age of 60, I can buy that list online. Once they have the list online, they usually will try and check to see if the information on the list is valid. So sometimes you might get a telephone call and there's nobody at the other end of the line, and you'll say, hello, hello, and you'll wonder why someone is calling you. It's possible that it's someone who's checking the number to make sure that someone on the other end is picking up. A number that is valid and live and has another human being on the other end of it is more valuable than a number that has not been tested. The contact information is then sold in a list, and then the scammers will attempt to run a scam. If they are successful in obtaining money from you in a scam, you will go on another list that says that this information has resulted in someone being able to get money from another person. We've had people that have been scammed, and then a year later, others have called and said, hey, we heard you were scammed last year. We are here to help you collect your money. This was a secondary scam. Next slide, please. We all think of these scammers as being overseas and on these call centers, but please also remember that scammers can be local. They can be that person that you met online by text or phone or email, someone who claims to be law enforcement or at a bank. Sometimes, unfortunately, scams can be run by family members. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. Sometimes the indispensable home health aide can tell you about this wonderful investment opportunity that's not real, but is actually a scam. Incredibly helpful neighbors can also run scams. So it's important to remember that it's not just the people on the phone or the computer, but you have to use some caution when dealing with people that you meet in real life. Next slide, please. So what kind of a person that you meet in real life, what kind of scam can they run? I've got this great business opportunity, but you can't tell anyone about it. If you tell people about it, you won't get the same return. This is often a scam. This is an appeal for secrecy, and it's an ask for money. Lottery scams can be done in person. Bail money pickups can be done in person. Check washing. Can you please deposit this check in your account? Mine doesn't work so well. That can be done in person. Any problem that can be solved with the use of money, you have to take a step back and think, what is really going on here? Just because a person will meet you in real life does not mean that they are trustworthy. So don't take that as a sign that, oh, this isn't a scam because it's not someone overseas reaching out to you. People are willing to show up in person to take your hard-earned money. Next slide, please. Slow everything down. A scammer is looking to hijack your brain. They want to put you in a state of excitement. You want to slow everything down. You want to verify the information. You want to talk to someone you trust. Careful of things that seem too good to be true. Don't ever call them back on their numbers. And check whenever you have a heightened emotion. Whenever you find yourself in the grip of a strong emotion and there's a request for money, ask yourself, is this something real or is this someone trying to run a scam? So I'd like to pass it on now to my colleague, Detective Anthony Nuccio, who is the older adult liaison at NYPD's 19th Precinct. Anthony, I'm going to pass to you.
Thank you, Jeanine, and thank you, Senator, for hosting this tonight. We can start with the slides. I'm the crime prevention officer and the older adult liaison from the 19th Precinct. And like Jeanine said, there are a host of different scams that these scammers perpetrate. On a daily basis, we receive many reports of scams coming into the 19th Precinct and citywide. And I think we'll go to my first slide and just want to go through a few of the most common ones we see. You can go to the next slide. I think that black bar might be blocking some of it, but the part that's blocked. So scammers will call and pretend to be a host of different, I want to go back one. And then to the second slide. Pretend to be a host of different people. They'll pretend to be medical professionals calling, stating a loved one has been in a car accident or needs a medical assistance immediately and try to convince you to send money to them. We've also seen hostage scams where someone's calling saying a loved one has been taken hostage and need to send money immediately in order to release them. We see charity scams, law enforcement scams. All these scams have the same thing in common. The person starts with something that's terrible has happened, then says we can fix the problem if you send us money or get us money. So we'll see instances where they're calling pretending to be law enforcement and they're saying, oh, we've arrested your loved one. In order to release them, you have to send bail money. We've been seeing Medicare and Social Security Administration scams where they're calling and saying there's some information missing from your Medicare or your Social Security, and we need you to send money or send us personal information in order to resolve that issue. Some other ones that are very, very popular are utility and government. We received a few from Con Ed, people pretending to be Con Edison or AT&T, saying we're going to shut your service off if you don't send us money now. And then typically during tax season, we see a lot of IRS phone scams. People pretend to be IRS agents saying you owe money in back taxes. And if you don't send the money, we're going to send agents to your home and have you arrested. One of the most popular ones, especially among older adults, these scammers are pretending to be loved ones or grandkids or your sons or daughters. They may start the call off with grandma, grandpa, I'm in trouble, or mom, dad, I need your help. And at that moment, they may sound nothing. They may not actually be your grandkids. They most likely are not your grandkids, and you got to remember that. But them saying grandma or grandpa on the phone or mom, dad, and hearing them in distress, you believe that person on the other line is a loved one, and you'll do anything at that point to help them. So these are the most common scams we see. We even see romance scams, people falling in love on Facebook with scammers, and then the scammers developing this relationship and encouraging them to send money to them for trips or to come see them on a plane. So they get the trust of the love of the person on the other end to believe that they are someone that they've fallen in love with. We'll go to the next slide. So these are some of the most common scams that we receive here in the 19th precinct and citywide, especially amongst our older adult population. What are they doing? They're using the fear, like Jeanine said, the fear to hook you in the beginning of the conversation. They're also using technology called such as call spoofing and AI, artificial intelligence. I'm sure you've probably heard about AI in the news recently. Something also called spoofing. You cannot trust your caller ID. Caller ID on your phone, caller ID on your house phone. Scammers can use spoofing in order to change their number to appear like anybody's number. They can make it say NYPD on your caller ID. They can make it say a loved one's name. They can even make it say the senator's office if they wanted to. Whoever they can trick you into picking the phone up for. And then artificial intelligence. This is when a scammer can use your voice or a loved one's voice or someone that you know's voice in order to trick you. So they'll make a phone call to you, and you'll be someone on the end of the line that sounds exactly like the person they're attempting to fool you as they're calling you. So what can you do? Well, call spoofing is very easy. I would just say let all your calls go to voicemail. AI, taking your voice off of your voicemail is very important. Using the default electronic message or robot message that comes with your phone or your answering service is important, because we don't want any criminals getting a hold of your actual voice in order to create a scam call with one of your loved ones using your voice. So just simply use the default message that comes with your phone or your answering machine to remove your voice from your answering service. With the next video, I'm going to show you a quick example of call spoofing and how that's used to trick you. I'll play that. Should be slide 4. There we go.
It's known as spoofing, when scammers mask phone numbers in your caller ID display so an incoming call looks like it's from a familiar number. Spoofers often use your area code, so a call may seem like it's from a neighbor, a local company, or even a government agency. They can get you at hello, even if no one's on the line. Sometimes scammers use spoofed robocalls to see if your line is live so they can target you later. Or you may be prompted to push a button on your phone to hear an important message. Don't do it. It may result in fraudulent charges. You may hear a recording or a live operator or some combination following a scam script designed to confuse you. The caller may already know a lot about you and may try to use that to fool you into giving them more. Keep your guard up. If a caller starts asking you for your PIN or a password to a bank account, or if you feel pressured or bullied, hang up. If you want to call back, use a customer service number you can validate on a bill, an account statement, or an official website. Bottom line, if you don't recognize the number, don't answer. And if you do, don't hang on, hang up. Learn more at fcc.gov/spoofing.
So as you can see, spoofing can be used to perpetrate a lot of these scams, and it's kind of the first piece of the scam that these individuals use to hook you. You see a number you recognize, you pick it up, or you see a number that looks like an official number, you pick it up. So my advice, we'll go to the next slide, is let all of your calls go to voicemail, even if you recognize the number. Letting the calls go to voicemail allows you to listen to them a later time. Most scammers won't leave voicemails or messages, so that's good. If they do leave a message, it gives you some time to think about the call, think about who's calling, think about the message they left, and it gives you some time to research the caller. Like the video said, never call back a number that they give you on the phone or leave in a voicemail or text you with. Always do some research. Be a little detective work, do a little detective work on your end, and go to your Go to your utility bills, go to the back of your bank card, call numbers that you know that can be trusted, and call that number back. Never call a number that he text or email you. We'll go to the next slide. The NYPD has a new scam hotline. It's a man 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by a live officer or detective. You can call this number at 646-610-SCAM or 7226. If you think you received a phone call, a text message, an email, or anybody that's calling or contacting you, asking for money, and you're not sure whether it's a scam or not, you can call this number and speak to a live officer. Of course, if you have been the victim of a scam and you did lose money or you did give personal information, we definitely encourage you to dial 911 to make that report. The other number is just in case you need some encouragement knowing if a call was real or not. So jot this down. You'll actually get this in an email later on. This is a number that you can save, and it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'll go to the next slide. Something else I wanted to talk about is mail theft. Here on the Upper East Side, we see it a lot. It's the process of stealing mail, and what are they looking for? Looking for money. And if they get cash and a birthday card, that's great. If they get a gift card and a birthday card, that's also great. But what are these criminals looking for? Looking for checks. National average for a check reported in a single case was nearly $45,000. And the median amount is about $14,000. And this is nationwide. We can go through all the bullet points here. Sometimes they're actually washing the check clean. In other cases, they're duplicating the check on check paper and using the very real information that's on the check as a template to create a counterfeit check. Go to the next slide. Next bullet. It's happening in all 50 states, but New York City, New York, Florida, and you can go to the next bullet, and California are seeing the most reports. So here in New York City, we see a lot, especially on the Upper East Side. In the 19th precinct, we received over 200 reports in 2023. And 25 of those reports, most likely, we believe that they actually, the mail was being stolen from inside of a post office. And in 2024 year to date, we have 120 plus reports of mail theft, check theft, and 27 possibly from inside post office, and many more of these go unreported. The NYPD and the United States Postal Inspector is working very, very hard to combat this and make arrests, and investigations are ongoing. But just want you to know that this is happening. This is a crime that's occurring here on the Upper East Side and in Manhattan. You should be very careful with anything you put in the mail, especially if it has some sort of financial cost attached to it, like a check or money or cash or gift cards. Go to the next slide. So where's mail being stolen from? We can go through the 3 different images here. So we know about the green and blue mailboxes on the corner and the mail cart that the postal person pushes around the neighborhood. The mail is being stolen from them. And the criminals are stealing mail keys, universal keys that open these boxes, and then they can open the box and take all the mail out. They're also stealing it directly from the mail cart that the postal person pushes around the neighborhood. And then we hit the next image. And unfortunately, very unfortunately, there are some dishonest employees in mail facilities that are also stealing mail. So we got to be careful. Anywhere the mail travels, there's an opportunity for a criminal to steal it. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I mail it inside my building at my doorman, or I mail it with my front desk." Well, we can go to the next slide. Just wanted to take you through what happens when your mail, where it goes. So it's picked up from your building by the mail carrier and placed in one of their push carts. And then sometimes they do leave that push cart out on the street while they're going up into a building that has stairs. And that's an opportunity for a criminal to steal it right from that mail cart. It's left unattended on the street, and criminals have been known to steal right from there. So they pick the mail that you mail inside your building. It is safe. It is completely safe. But the minute it leaves your building is when it's up for grabs by criminals. So when the postal person is done with their mail route, they bring their canvas push cart and they store it into one of these blue or green mailboxes on the corner. And it's placed into those boxes. And it waits in that box now until a postal truck comes and picks it up later on. We can advance. So it's transported to these boxes. It sits in those boxes, and then a mail truck comes around later on and picks it up. So you say, "I didn't mail it. I didn't put it in a post box." Well, it eventually will end up in a post box and wait to be picked up. So there are various places along your check's journey, your mail's journey, that it has an opportunity for theft, and we want to avoid that altogether. Go to the next slide. Here's some examples. On the left, you'll see someone broad daylight stealing a whole bag of that mail. That's all mail that's been picked up and waiting for the truck to come and get it. And on the right, you'll see someone fishing the mail out of a mailbox using a piece of string or a shoestring or a belt with some sticky tack on the end of it or a mouse trap on the end of it. They'll pull whatever they can get out of that mailbox, and they're looking for checks. They're opening every single piece of mail that they obtain. We'll go to the next slide. So what can you do if you still mail checks to pay bills? Well, number one, don't. We want you to try to discontinue check writing. Try to wean yourself off of checkbook. We can go to the next point. Paying bills electronically. I know that word sounds scary, electronically, and we're going to go over that in a second, but paying bills electronically is the safest route. And no matter how you pay, keeping a close eye on your check on your account is always very important. Go to the next slide. So these are the misconceptions I hear a lot when I tell people to wean themselves off a checkbook. I hear a lot of pushback. I've been writing checks for years. I don't know if I can do it. Well, here's a couple of the misconceptions that I want to help you bust. So the first one, I'll get hacked. And you'll see next to it, mail being stolen is a much greater threat than getting hacked. Well, that does happen. Hacking does occur. Mail being stolen is much more rampant. So getting hacked should be less of your worries at this particular moment. If you're mailing checks, the thought of your check being stolen should be a greater concern to you. So getting hacked is a concern, but it shouldn't be your top concern. Your top concern should be getting the mail being stolen from the mailboxes or somewhere along this journey. Something else I also hear a lot of is, it's too complicated. I'm not tech savvy. I don't have a computer. I'm sure a lot of you tonight are thinking that. Well, guess what? You don't need a computer. You don't need a smartphone. All you need is your old-fashioned landline. Contact your payees and tell them you'd like to set up automatic payments. They're just taking the information that you're sending them on the check and they're inputting into their computers. And then when a bill is due, they'll automatically take the money from the account. So it's the same as getting a check, but you're leaving out the check part, and you're leaving out the ability for a criminal to steal that check and transport. When you send a check to a payee, they're placing that check and all the information into their computer systems anyway. So you're not avoiding paying electronically, you're just prolonging it, because now the check has to get from you to the payee, and then they'll enter it. So all you have to do is call your payee, say, I'd like to set up automatic payments. It's quicker, it's safer, and it's going to avoid any kind of check theft from the mail system. The next point. There are instances where I hear people saying that the payee doesn't accept electronic banking. Well, you'd be surprised. In 2024, most places are now accepting other forms of payment besides checks. As a last resort, you can ask your bank, your financial institution, to print a check on your behalf and mail it. It does get mailed like a normal check would, but it is printed and may less likely be stolen. So that's the last resort. But I would first ask all your payees for alternate forms of payment besides checks. We'll go to the next slide. And I just wanted to show you exactly what you've been doing all these years. We've heard protect your identity, protect your identity, protect your identity for decades. But here we are in 2024, putting our identity out there. When you send a check, you have to realize what's on it. Your name, your address, your bank's name, your signature. I want to go back one. Your signature. And you wouldn't believe what people put in the memo section. Social security numbers, phone numbers, too much information on this check. But the biggest thing on this check that you're sending, you're placing in the system, is your account and routing number. That's huge. With all this personal information on this check that we're just sending out there and hoping and gets to the destination, I hope you now looking at checks a lot differently and seeing all this information that we want you to protect that's being placed in an envelope and is up for grabs by criminals. Like I said, the NYPD and the postal inspectors are working very, very, very hard, and we've made lots of arrests, but it isn't just one or two individuals that are doing this, perpetrating this crime. So we want the less checks out there, the less ability there is to steal, and we're going to put them out of business by switching forms of payment. We'll go to the next slide. If you see anyone suspicious around a blue or green mailbox or a postal cart or your mailroom, 911 immediately. We want to make sure that we're aware of it and we can find them. A lot of times this happens at night, but as you saw in the video earlier, it does happen during the daytime. So anybody at all suspicious around any of these boxes or mail facilities, 911 immediately. Except for those two guys. They're good. They work with me. We'll go to the next slide. There's something else I wanted to bring up. Phishing emails and texts. We've all received them. We can advance through this. These are texts and emails that are pretending to be companies that they're not. So it's called phishing, and it's fraud schemes. They're sent by emails and texts posing to be legitimate companies like IRS, banks, credit cards, shipping companies. We go to the next bullet. They'll send you text messages or emails, and they'll tell you to click on a link or a button, and then it'll bring you to a fake website that looks identical to the actual company they're trying to represent's website. We'll go to the next bullet. So if you receive anything like this, we want you to immediately delete them. Do not click on any buttons or links. These are all real emails and text messages that I have received directly to myself. The first one you saw was IRS pretending to be IRS. They wanted me to click on a link. This is one from Bank of America. You'll see with all these, something that's very common is the grammar and the fonts are all off. You'll see a flash through the D. They all have something in common. They want you to click on something. They want you to click on a button or a link, and they're all saying either they need you to update your payment information or you need to click on something because there's been a security alert. Here's the most recent one I received from Chase Bank. I actually have Chase. So I thought for a second, is this real? But I saw that button on the bottom and it says verify accounts. Financial institutions will never email or text you asking you to verify account information or update account information. If you receive any emails or text messages with links or buttons, and that little blue thing on the bottom that has verify accounts, that's called a button. If you see any emails or text messages with links or buttons in them, delete them immediately. Do not click on the link, do not click on the button. If you did that, it would bring you to a fake website and you input your real credentials into it, and the scammer would now have that information. Or if you click on a link or a button, it may install software, malware or a virus on your computer, and it will corrupt your computer. So here's some text messages I received. This one's from Wells Fargo. It wanted me to call this number. That's a scam phone number. If I called it, I would have reached a scam call center, pretending to be Wells Fargo. And we go to the next one. Here's a text message I received from FedEx saying, hello, Olivia. I am not Olivia. So I knew immediately that was a scam. It wanted me to click on a link to set up a delivery. I deleted that. Here's the next one. iTunes. There's that dreaded link. I deleted that immediately. I would never click on that. Here's one from, let me go next one. The U.S. Postal Service. This one's been huge lately, saying there's a problem with the delivery. But there's that link again. If I clicked on that link, it could have done two things: install a virus onto my phone or my computer, or brought me to a fake website where I would have been tricked further into inputting some information. So text message and emails with links or buttons should be deleted immediately. If you accidentally click on one of those, disconnect your computer from internet, shut your phone off, bring it to a service repair shop, tell them what happened, make sure they clean it and remove any kind of viruses or malware from it. So, and don't be embarrassed that it happened. Definitely report it, definitely bring it to a service repair shop. We don't want these criminals to get a hold of any kind of information that may be on your devices. Go to the next slide. We can advance through this. This is all reiterating that don't reply to the emails or texts. Don't open or click on any attachments. Don't click on those links. They're bad. Links and buttons are bad. Delete, delete, delete. And if you accidentally click on something, make sure you bring it to a repair shop or a computer store to have your computer or device clean. So links are bad. We'll go to the next slide. And definitely don't email them back. Lastly, I wanted to talk about older adult liaisons and crime prevention officers. Every precinct in the city, all 77 of them, and all 9 police service areas, the housing officers, have a crime prevention officer assigned to them who are also the older adult liaison. I think they're going to, when the senator is going to send you a link or put a link in the chat, so you can find out who your older adult liaison. If you don't live on the Upper East Side, you can find out who that is in your particular neck of the woods. The liaisons are in contact person for each command. We follow up with all 65 and older crime victims and make sure that you get the appropriate services needed for them to recover from whatever crime they were the victim of. And what I'd like to also mention is if you are the victim of any crime, always call 911. You should never fear calling 911. A lot of times I'll hear, I didn't think it was an immediate emergency, or the crime happened in the past. It doesn't matter. The crime happened in the past, or it's occurring right now. Always call 911. Officers will come to you to take the report. So never fear calling 911. And if you are the victim of a crime and you're 65 and older, the older adult liaisons in every precinct are there for you in conjunction with Safe Horizon, who also works with us. That's my my little spiel on scams. I'd like to now pass it over to Kathleen Fisher. She's the Associate State Director of Community Engagement for AARP, New York, and also a scam expert. So take it away, Kathleen.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, everyone. I am the New York State Representative for AARP on fraud, and I'm really thankful to Senator Krueger for giving us this time with you tonight. So as soon as my slides get up, we can get started. But as you can see, AARP has a large investment in fraud prevention, and our branch of AARP that deals with fraud and tries to do research and share it is the Fraud Watch Network. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about that tonight. So AARP, as you probably know, is a membership organization that empowers people to age as they wish. We offer education and resources on a variety of topics important to older adults. We're a nonpartisan organization and advocate for public policy issues important to the 50 plus as well. And one of our areas of focus is scam and fraud prevention. So we hope that you'll check out slide 2, please. Next slide. We hope that you'll check out the Fraud Watch Network. So AARP's Fraud Watch Network is a great resource to keep up on the latest scams. We have a national staff that works independently to research and offer educational resources. And we have state teams that push this information out into the community to help people stay informed. So all across New York and in every borough on Long Island, on Staten Island, and all the major cities and towns upstate, we have teams that share information with volunteers about fraud and scam prevention and try to take that information further and further out into the community. Next slide. Next slide, please. We know that through our consumer research work and our own research that most people believe that scams really only happen to older adults. The reality is that younger adults report losing money to fraud more than older adults. But a reminder, older adults lose more money. So more commonly, young people are scammed and targeted, but more money is lost by older adults. And that source is listed there on the slide. You can protect yourself, though, in addition to the other tips that you've gotten. We hope that you'll grab a pen or pencil and write down this line or see it in the chat. AARP has a Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. toll-free fraud watch helpline. And that number is 877-908-3360. And our trained operators can offer tips on how to spot a scam, concrete steps to avoid and prevent fraud, actions to take place if you have experienced fraud, emotional support from peers who have experienced fraud, and referrals to law enforcement and other agencies that investigate fraud. So we're giving you a lot tonight. I would not be surprised if anyone was feeling saturated with all the information and tips and telephone numbers and websites that we're giving you. But all of this information is on all of our websites. So you can also visit aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork, find a lot of the information that we're all sharing with you tonight. So one of the things we try to explain to people, and as Jeanine said earlier, the goal in scam operations is to get a target into a heightened emotional state and what scammers themselves have referred to as putting you under the ether. Tactics include instilling fear or excitement or even love. Once there, it is very hard to access our logical thinking, and the scammer succeeds. The criminal is using our own thought processes and emotions against us. The way our brains work when emotion takes over makes us all susceptible. And interestingly, AARP has done research in the area of how to identify a scam when it's coming at you. And we've determined that most scams, not all, but most come with 3 indicators. They come with the communication from outside, out of the blue, that puts you into a heightened emotional state, and that contains urgency. So if we can get people to recognize those 3 things when they happen together and help them associate that with a red flag to understand that fraud or scams are happening, this would be a success. So one more time, communication from out of the blue puts you in a heightened emotional state and contains a sense of urgency. This is where we're doing some of our research work, but we believe that we can teach people how to take an active pause. There's more to come on that. And here are some of the red flags that you may have noticed seeing, but that we want to also bring your attention to. Next slide, please. The red flags that indicate a scam: urgency, expediency, or pressure, like I said. We also see the bait and switch, where someone asks you to pay up front for a free training or prize or course or a certificate, or to clear your credit. So they're offering you something and then they're asking you to pay for it. Spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, untraceable payment methods, which, as we heard from Tony, gift cards are, unsolicited phone calls or asking for personal information, overpayment requiring you to pay something back as if you overpaid, asking you not to speak to police or family about something, opening an account on someone else's behalf, or instant intimacy followed by requests or favors. So those are some common red flags that we ask you to keep in mind. Now, next slide. We've heard about a lot of scams already today, but I wanted to let you know that in New York State, 20% of all fraud and scams are a result of identity theft, according to the New York State Attorney General's office. And 15% of scams are imposter scams. So we wanted to talk a little bit about those. So in terms of imposter scams, one of the biggest one is the Social Security office. And you might get a phone call from someone pretending to be from the Social Security Administration asking you to confirm your number. Don't oblige. As we said before, a Social Security representative doesn't need you to call you for this information because they already have it. Certainly don't give that to them. If you receive documents containing your Social Security number, you should either lock them in a safe place or shred them. If you don't have a shredder, many communities have places where you can drop sensitive documents off in a secure location to be shredded. And don't be afraid to ask. If someone asks you for your Social Security number, do you really need my Social Security number? Because there are organizations that do require your number. Your employer is one of them, but others might ask for it and they don't really need it, such as your doctor's office or the dentist. They can get that information from the insurance company. Next slide. AARP is also really trying to remind people that gift cards are just that. They're gift cards that should be used for gifts. In a 2022 AARP survey, 1 in 3 adults said that they or someone they know has been asked at some point to purchase gift cards by scammers seeking payment of a financial obligation. Gift cards are an untraceable source of payment, making them appealing to scammers, which we'll cover more in a minute. And why gift cards? They're virtually untraceable. They are readily converted into cash or Bitcoin, and they have the ability to move large amounts of money in small parcels. Scammers sometimes refer to gift cards as an electronic voucher, but make no mistake, no legitimate business or government agency would ask you to pay a fee or a debt using a gift card. If you are asked to do this, it's best to disengage immediately, hang up, and cut off communication. Next slide. We all talked about this already in all of our presentations, but imposter scams have a common solution, and that is to verify. So here are some of the different folks that often we see people posing to be someone they're not. So they pose to be from government entities like the Social Security Administration, IRS, Medicare, FTC, or the US Postal Service, or businesses, Amazon, utility companies, FedEx, Norton Antivirus, or Microsoft. Criminals can even impersonate your grandchild, as Tony said, by learning their name or interests or location on Facebook, but always verify. Hang up and go to the source to verify. If someone says they're your relative or a grandchild, you can always hang up and either call your grandchild or call their parent, your child, and ask them where they are right now and get the facts from someone that you have reached out to so that you can identify them, as well as to these government entities. You can go to the Social Security's website or to the IRS, and you can look up your information there. So always verify the business or agency and go to a trusted and official website. Next slide. Okay, so I think we've probably all heard about the online romance scam. It's such a common way for people to meet each other now. You have to remember that a scammer is willing to take a long time and play the long game to build trust and get to know you. And so while feelings can start out strong, they're often followed by requests for favors. We know that they're also willing to take a long time to build up trust and to start asking for bigger and bigger favors. So we really ask people to make sure that if anyone asks for financial favors or payments, that is a huge red flag and that you should talk to a trusted source and do not send any money. Next slide. So now that we've discussed some of the common scams and why it's important to change, to pay attention to spot them so you can stop them, we want to talk about how we even talk about fraud. So as we were saying, take time to verify the source. Next slide, please. What you can do. One of the things that you can do is to keep operating an antivirus software current. You can keep your passwords private. Do not share them. Use unique passwords for each online account and consider a password manager. Next slide. AARP offers some of these tips for creating a strong password. Be unpredictable. Predictable words in your password include common words, your name, birthday, anniversary, or address. Or another predictable thing is to use easy keystrokes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in France, it was a common password that was discovered was the top row of the keyboard, which was AZERTY, which was just really easy to put in, to put your password in. So be unpredictable. Also vary it. Don't use it over and over in different places like we heard before. Use specialized characters. Alternate upper and lower case. Use numbers and symbols, and increase the length. A hacker has roughly 1 in 1.2 trillion random chance of figuring out your password if you're using 8 characters with only digits and lowercase letters. The numbers are high because what you type in is a specific order, but the bad guys don't do this manually. If you use a 12-character password and expand your choices to include capital letters and the special characters that we all know about, the odds of landing on the correct 12-character combination increase to almost 1 in 15 sextillion, as in adding 21 zeros on the end. So a 12-digit password with special characters takes forever to break. Consider a passkey or two-step verification, which would mean fingerprints, facial recognition, or drawing a pattern on your phone. Also, let browsers help you. Oftentimes, browsers such as Google Chrome and Apple Safari, Microsoft Edge, and Mozilla Foxfire have built-in password managers that we recommend, which will prompt you to let them generate complex passwords for you. And most commercial password managers, such as subscription-based Password, Bitwarden, Dashlane, and Keeper Security and LastPass, have the same features. Next slide. Another great idea is if you are not in the market for a loan, freeze your credit. If your credit is frozen and you've placed an intentional, deliberate freeze on your credit, no one can go out there and steal your sensitive information and get a loan in your name. So there are 3 different places you can do that. So we've got those numbers listed here. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion will all do that. There is no fee, and if you want to unfreeze your credit, it only takes 24 hours, and you can do it with a phone call. The only thing required for this is that you verify your identity with them. Next slide. So you can also make financial decisions, avoid making financial decisions in a heightened emotional state. What we ask people to do is stop and pause. Do your research. If you're considering giving to a charity, use charitynavigator.org or give.org to verify it. And brokers can be checked at brokercheck.finra.org. Also, screen your calls. Watch out for fake emails and text messages. If you're screening your calls, you're never offering your voice to someone who could be trying to capture it, and you're not dealing with people who might be imposters. Also, we recommend that people develop a refusal script. Next slide. A refusal script means practicing saying no. Spend your time rehearsing your refusal. No is a complete sentence, so you can always just say no, no thank you. You can always just hang up. You can also say, don't deal with these matters by phone. I'll need time to verify this. I believe that account is all paid up. I don't believe I owe any money. I'll double check and give the main office a call back tomorrow. This is not something I need or am interested in, thanks anyway, or My son or daughter can help me with that. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. But you can also just say, no, I'm not interested, and hang up. Next slide. How we talk about victims is often how victims talk about themselves. So once someone becomes the victim of a scam, they can often go around saying, I can't believe I fell for this. How stupid could I be? But we know that scams are underreported, and it has something to do with how scam victims feel about themselves. They're filled with shame. How many of us have heard or thought or said these things? How could someone be so gullible? That was so obvious. Was he born yesterday? These comments add judgment and shame, but even when we say these things, we are all under the scammer's spell because the focus is on the victim, not on the criminal. And we do want to reiterate that these people are criminal, and there's no better thing we can do than to put the onus on the person perpetuating the crime. Next slide. So how we react to crimes is very interesting. With violent crimes, we show empathy. We expect help from law enforcement, including prosecution and protection. But with financial crimes, we blame the victims. How could you fall for that? You'd have to be an idiot to give your money away. And we use positive words to describe the criminals as shrewd and crafty. So change is needed. And from our research, we confirmed that we do treat crimes differently depending on the crime. With violent and property crimes, we feel empathy for the victim, whether someone held up on the street at gunpoint or their home was broken into. Of course we do. And the crime and the criminal are scary to us. When it's a scam or fraud, we don't think of the criminal or the crime first. We tend to lay blame at the feet of the victims. If we do think about the criminal, we often use these positive words like cunning and shrewd. You got duped by that. It's the oldest trick in the book. How could he fall for that? You'd have to be an idiot. How much money did you give him? This needs to change. Next slide. AARP empowers victims to get support, and we do have a fraud hotline and a fraud victim support group. So you can imagine the chaos that happens in a family or a relationship when someone does end up losing money. Sometimes people lose their life savings or their house, and their whole retirement plan has to change. We have a support group online with trained volunteers who can spend time helping people work through the shame, the embarrassment, the sadness and depression, and also learn to trust again. So it helps lower stress. It's a safe place to talk. It's open to victims and family members. So if you know anyone who's been scammed, please consider this. AARP.org/fraud support is where you can find that. Next slide. So in conclusion, we would love you to take this information and share it with your friends. It's kind of a heavy topic, but we know that everyone's getting inundated from all sources on this. And we'd love it if you share anything you learned or that sticks with you tomorrow. If you can spot a scam, you can stop it. So AARP has lots of resources online. Our Fraud Watch Network is available at aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. And it's continually updated. We have bi-weekly alerts. We have all kinds of tip sheets that you can download. And we'd really love to see you on one of our teams around the state to help us push this information further out into your community. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. We have just gotten so much useful information from all three of you. I'm going to invite the three of you to come back on screen and unmute yourself, because we're going to start to try to go through way too many questions. So maybe I'll actually just go to the ones that have been coming in because they're very timely. So people don't quite understand what a password manager is. So can someone just explain that, please?
Sure, I can. So a password manager is a program that you subscribe to that will keep your passwords for you and regenerate very difficult to remember passwords. So it keeps all of your information in one place. The worst thing you can do is put it on a sticky note on the side of your computer or on your bulletin board in front of your desk. So that's one way that you can have it saved in a vault and protected for you.
Thank you. And then there was reference to they're stealing your voice and the words you use. So one question is, so should you even have a voicemail message? Because they can dial in, listen, and tape your voicemail, even if you never picked up the phone. I see people shaking their heads here.
Yeah, so I can answer that one. So, like I said earlier, yes, remove your actual voice from your voicemail, your answer machine, and just use the default message that comes with it. So if someone calls, they're just hearing a robot. They're not hearing you, and they can't use your voice against you or against your family members. Great question.
Right. And since some of us are on Zoom, a question that came in as well. Now there's like AI notes on Zoom, and they can tape your voice if you're on a Zoom with them. Has anybody heard of this? I promise you, my office is not trying to use this Zoom or any other Zoom to scam people, but is that another area we need to suddenly be worried about?
Social media is a worry. I haven't seen any reports yet of that, but we have nationwide seen reports of people using posts on Facebook or Instagram videos and getting voice pieces of their voices off of that. Just try to limit your amount of audio that you put out there, and you can do that on your voicemail, and you can do that. You can protect your Facebook page and make sure it's only friends and family that can see you, and it's not open. It's private and not public. Just be very aware, like you are with your identity and your information you put out there, and be very aware of where your voice is going to.
And Detective, you also were talking about the scams of washing checks and changing them. Apparently, at least one of the banks, somebody said, I think JP Morgan is offering some kind of safe checks. Do you know what that is, and does that actually make sense?
I'm not familiar with that. I'll look into that. I know a lot of banks are trying to encourage customers to wean themselves off of checks as well. And I think JP Morgan is working with landlords in order to get them on board with electronic payments, because I think management companies and landlords are kind of the last person or entities that are asking for checks. So it is a group effort amongst the law enforcement and financial institutions to try to wean everybody off checks. But I'll look into that and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. So somebody wrote it in. Here's the question. All right, there's just so many. Let me go back now to some of the many questions we got before this discussion. Okay, so it's been increasingly inconvenient and risky to pay bills by mail check. Got that. We all went over that. Using ACH is much easier to do and less time consuming, but how safe is that really when you're also giving out bank account information to the payee when you're paying through an ACH system? Is it safer? Can that get scammed also?
I mean, like I said earlier, hacking, and we see these emails we get all the time from different companies saying there's been a breach, a security breach. It usually ends. The security breach is usually on the payee side, not your bank account. So the onus is on that company to clear up the problem on their end. They usually offer credit monitoring services afterwards. But just like I said earlier, when you send that check with all your personal information on it, it eventually ends up at the payee, and they input that into their computers. So you're really not avoiding doing things electronically, because now all your personal information on the check is already in their system. So you're not avoiding it at all. You're just prolonging it. So I would definitely say paying electronically is the safer way. Automatic withdrawals are definitely, as an expert, and all three of us up on this panel will tell you the same thing, is a safer way to do things versus paper checks. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. And it sounds like anathema, but if you don't set up an electronic access through the web or an app, and an app is preferable, then it's available for scammers to sign up for online access using your stolen identity. So it's really better that you do it. And plus, you can set up account notifications like a text or an email if a transaction exceeds a certain dollar amount, so that you can monitor that. And you always have 24/7 access to monitor your online account.
And just one more thing: if my 74-year-old mother and father can do this, then anybody in this room can do it. And I've walked a 93-year-old woman into doing this, and she's so much happier. I promise you, you can all do it. It's very easy. Ask your financial institution, go to your bank and say you'd like to do this, and they'll help you as well.
And so actually, a number of people raise the issue that they find particularly banks aren't really interested in helping them when something has happened or a check's been, changed. So I guess, Jeanine, from the DA's perspective, we all know, I think we all know, if somebody steals your credit card and uses it without your knowledge or approval, you have a $50 maximum, risk to yourself. But if somebody steals money from your bank account because they've somehow gotten access to all that information, is there not some equivalent of that? Is there some way for us to make banks more accountable to keeping us whole when these kinds of things happen?
Well, the banks are very distressed by what's going on, and it's a money loss for them. They don't like it. So they are looking hard to try and figure out how to help. If your check is washed and someone else forges your signature, you should get the money back from the bank. That will be easier. If you hand over your information or if you facilitate a wire transfer, that's going to be very hard to get that money back, and very hard for the bank to tell whether or not it's a fraudulent transaction or one that you've made willingly. Sometimes these scammers will actually talk you through a script as to what to say to the bank to try and bypass the safeguard measures that the bank has put in place. So the banks are aware that the scammers will keep you on the phone and tell them, yes, no, tell the bank that you're wiring money to this foreign country as a gift for your relative who's just moved there. Just as the banker is saying, is anyone pressuring you to send the money? Is anyone trying to force you to send the money? So anyone that's trying to get you to follow a script is another sign that you're being scammed. So the short answer is check washing, yes. Contact your bank, tell them that that your checks have been washed and you have not given permission. You should get your money back. It's harder with the wire transfers and the cash taken out.
And follow up, apparently there's some attorney general's lawsuit against Citibank related to, I guess, not making victims whole. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't think I can comment on anything. It's an ongoing investigation, but sure, take a look. They're very good about posting updates when they have results. Keep tuned.
So is that something where if you feel that, I guess, if you have your money in Citibank and you feel like you've been scammed and they have not responded, or should you reach out to the Attorney General to be added to that case? Is there at least
You can always reach out to the Attorney General's office and say, this is what the problem has been. Can you help me?
And it is specific to people who use Citibank as their bank and have ended up in some kind of fraudulent money being taken from their accounts?
Well, I think all three of us are going to encourage you to report, no matter which bank you're with.
Okay.
So whatever bank you're with, report it to the FBI, report it to the FTC, report it to the NYPD, report it. There is no one place to gather data. So as a result, the data is spread out over many different people. It's a good idea to report. The more information we have, the more we can try and attack the problem.
And somebody wrote in, is there some deadline for reporting when you've been scammed? I mean, obviously we want to do it as quickly as possible, but is there any sort of statute,
Yes, there are.
too late to report?
Yeah, so for felonies, it's 5 years to report. So you have some time. And misdemeanors, it's less. Don't wait long periods of time, because certainly every day that passes, we lose the ability to capture information. Sometimes we can capture a trace of like what computer was used to make the transaction or to call you. So the sooner you can tell us, the better, but definitely tell us whenever you can. And we understand that sometimes it can be hard to come forward at first. So we're not gonna say, why didn't you come earlier? We're just gonna be happy that you made the report, but sooner does give us more tools.
Got it. So many questions coming from so many different directions that stay on theme. So apparently if you call the credit bureaus, they ask you to leave your social security number. We're always being told, don't give anybody your social security number. What are we supposed to do then?
That's the one place you can give your social security number. Just make sure you're calling the actual credit union. So sometimes when you put a search into the Google engine, it will give you an ad sponsored as the first returns.
Yes.
You have to look to make sure that it's actually the organization.
Wow. Yes, okay. If you think you've been scammed or they tried to scam you, but you didn't fall for it, so you didn't actually lose any money, should we still be calling those into 911 as well or reporting in any way?
We recommend that you also let the organization or business know who was being scammed. So if it's an imposter of the IRS, calling and letting them know, or whomever, the local business or Amazon.
Got it. Okay. So I think, I guess both for the law enforcement folks, are we actually ever catching any of these scammers and prosecuting them?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are huge investigations nationwide, and the FBI is involved in some of them. Larger ones with pretending to be Social Security Administration, IRS, but local scammers are caught and arrested. Also, local mail theft thieves are caught and arrested. So we are making some progress. We can't catch them all. A lot of them, like Jeanine was saying earlier, overseas, so it's very, very complicated. A lot of times, though, the money, very unfortunately, a lot of the money is not recovered, and that's the biggest concern for us, especially with older adults. So a lot of the money, unfortunately, can't be recovered, but investigations are ongoing in multiple bureaus, and arrests are made here and there. But it is a very, very difficult case to investigate, especially the phone scams.
Got it. So this is on medical, I think scamming, fraud. Somehow they've gotten your information that you are a Medicare recipient and you've needed specific kinds of health care. One example was needed injections for pain. And then people just keep calling them up 4 and 5 times a day saying they'll help with the pain management and they want you to do A, B, C, D, E. I mean, is it a different kind of fraud, or I mean, they just got your Medicare information instead. So I guess they want you to, I don't know exactly how they make money from you with the Medicare fraud. I guess if they can bill Medicare for fake healthcare services, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And we do ask people to report that kind of fraud to Medicare. So if you go to the Medicare.gov website and look up how to reporting Medicare fraud and abuse, you can actually leave the report there as well.
Got it. Okay. Oh, this is always an issue. People just hate junk mail, whether it's email junk or mail junk. That's not per se a scam. It's just really, really irritating. So we know that there are systems that you can file with to try to reduce the amount of junk mail you're getting, but is there a way to do something equivalent with the amount of email junk mail you're getting? It's not really a scam exactly. It's just they're going to drive you crazy.
Well, we do ask people to unsubscribe from email messages. If it's a known retailer, there's usually an unsubscribe button, or you can reply saying unsubscribe. But we caution against using the unsubscribe feature for emails you receive where you don't actually know that it's the retailer or have any prior relationship with the sender. So that's something to remember.
Because this is
So at least
back
in
to
my
the
system, yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
this
Jeanine.
is back to the verification of a live email. So if you get a strange email and you hit their unsubscribe button, they want you to put your email in there again. You're verifying that there's somebody at this email that's monitoring it.
Got it. Now my system gives me an option to say this is spam and unsubscribe. Is there any risk from pressing that button?
Marking it spam is the best way to go.
Okay, got it. Got it. All right, so everybody's stealing everyone's information. Is it okay to renew driver's license through the mail or online now, or should you really be showing up at a DMV site? Do we know whether that's its own sort of set of scams with?
I haven't received anything like that, but doing it online is probably the safer way, or in person. If any opportunity to do something in person, do so in person. Whether it's speaking to a teller directly instead of using an ATM machine, whatever it is, the human's always the best route versus any other ways. But doing so online, I haven't seen any kind of reports for the DMV scams on my end, anyway.
Got it. Oh, I'm sorry. So Detective, when you were talking about if you accidentally do, say yes or click on something that you know you shouldn't, where do you go to get your system cleaned? I mean, do you take your cell phone to the neighborhood cell phone store and they can actually clean it? Or is there some other kind of place that you would take a phone? Or and most people won't necessarily be able to pick up their computers and take it.
All right.
So,
Good question. So if it's a desktop, there are services out there. You can hire someone to come to your home and service it. And I would, again, make sure you're using a reputable company, like one of these big box stores. Some of them offer squads that can come to your home and repair things and clean things for you. If it's something portable, like a cell phone or a laptop, I would bring that to whoever. If you have an Apple product, bring it to an Apple store, an authorized Apple store. If you have some sort of a HP or Microsoft, bring it to one of their stores. But make sure you're doing research on whoever you're bringing it to. Make sure it's a reputable company that's licensed to do so. But disconnecting from the internet should be your first thing you do, and shutting off the device, and then finding a place to bring it.
got it. So many of us are still just trying to even understand what the heck AI is. But obviously there must be some correlation of AI and additional ways to scam us. Is there things that we should be particularly aware of when we're delving into, the AI options that pop up, at least on my computer every day, as like, try this, or here, sign up here.
So AI is emerging technology. It's developing and becoming more and more smart every day. The things we discussed earlier about the voice and limiting the amount of voice out there, and just being super careful. Talking to anybody, it might not even be a person anymore. So there's AI that's now pretending to be people in chats and emails and Facebook or social media. So just be super careful with who you're talking to, and realize that it might not even be a human on the other end of it. And if you're suspicious in any manner, hang up, delete, disengage from that conversation, and contact one of the various numbers you received tonight from all three of our agencies to help you confirm whether or not the person or entity is real. But AI is scary. I know we've all seen the movies, Terminator, and we're not there yet, thankfully. But it's just something to be very aware of and keep up to date on.
So I think, so there's Zelle, there's Venmo. I know that there have been some patterns of scams, at least with Zelle, I've been aware of that. Are we all recommending don't use those, or that you just need to know certain things before you use those?
I recommend that is a form of payment for money transfer. So, for instance, my mom, I'll bring her up again. She sends me birthday money now via Zelle. It's bank to bank. It's done through the banks. I would trust that. There's other third-party apps out there that I really can't speak to, but that is safe. And again, it's done through the bank. They're insured. There's a trail, and it has to be a financial institution that you have to go to do it. So you're doing it through your bank, and you could do it from one bank to a completely different bank. So they cross honor. Certainly, if anyone comes up to you on the street, the scam that we saw with Zelle is someone coming up to you asking you to use your phone to donate to a local charity, or donate to a basketball or a local team, and then they take your phone and they use your phone to Zelle or Venmo each other scammers money. So just make sure you're not giving your phone to anybody. If anyone asks to borrow your phone, do not hand it over to anybody. Even if they're asking they need to make an emergency call, direct them into a store to do so. Never hand your cell phone over to anybody on the street. Never, ever, ever.
I just want to say too, PayPal will often refund a scam if they can verify that you've been scammed. Venmo will not.
Okay, thank you. Romance scams. I think you were the one who talked about those, Kathleen. So what if you know the person who scammed you? Can you bring a legal case against them? How would you do that?
We have a person who was scammed out of her life savings, who is now a speaker for AARP, and she was not able to recover her money because she freely gave it away. So, but what she does she had to change her entire retirement based on the fact that she lost such a large amount of money. And so what she does to make good on that for herself is just to educate others. So it's going to be individual from case to case. I'm sure. What happened? Do either of you have facts on that?
Yeah, so we've been able to do it sometimes. It really depends on the circumstances. Kathleen is 100% right. It's really case specific. Um, I would say if you've had money and you've been scammed out, contact someone. You can contact a civil attorney through the New York City bar. They'll give you a referral. You can come to the DA's office, or you can come to the NYPD and say, this is what happened, and we'll try and figure out what's going on.
There's a lot of questions and we don't have time to even get through them, although I'm very interested in people's views about this of, can we do something to make the institutions more accountable? You know, where the whole world is going through Google and social media and online everything. Do these companies have some responsibility to do, frankly, better monitoring and better responses when they know that these scammers are exploiting us by using their systems, even though they didn't say, sure, use our systems to scam Liz out of everything? Is there, models that we should be looking at?
Well, one trend that we're starting to see and that we're also starting to initiate is more communication between agencies and organizations that are often working in silos instead of sharing information, so that we can all work together to sort of come up with protocol to react. And also, I know AARP does have like a bank safe program that teaches all the people who are the last person in the last step of the scam, who's actually someone goes to the bank and asks for their money, and it's that last chance for us to intervene. We're trying to train those people, the tellers and the managers at banks, to recognize the red flags and react. But for all of us to work together is one step. And I know that AARP is starting to bring together allies so that we can at least share information to all, give best practices about how to all work together.
I agree with
Go
Kathleen.
ahead, Jeanine, please.
Every bank has an older adult group, and they do actually monitor to see if there are unusual patterns in spending activity. So if you're having a problem, or if you have a relative who's having a problem and you need to have some intervention, you can always call the bank and say, I'm a trusted person. I think there's something going on. Can you take a look at the bank activity account? And they can do that.
Oh, great. The last question, and I see this all the time, particularly with younger people, they put all their credit card information on their phones. I think on an Apple phone, I think it's called Apple Wallet. Is that safe? I mean, on the one hand, people can bop you over the head and just take your credit cards, but when it's on your phone, I guess they can take your phone, but is it at more risk because it's sort of more there in the, internet world then? What do you think?
I think it's safer, especially if you have all the password protections on your phone and everything's either facial recognition or a traditional password. Do whatever you can to protect the phone and its contents. A lot of these phone companies have made the phones kind of impenetrable to someone that just grabs it, and you can then deactivate the phone and it becomes bricked, as they say, where it doesn't do anything anymore anyway. So if you do use your phone for banking and you have your card stored on there, the minute you notice that it's stolen or lost, you contact 911, contact us, and then contact your provider and have them cut it off so that anything on that it can't be used. But it's safe. I personally use it, and I have no problems with it at all on a law enforcement standpoint.
Does your 74-year-old mother use it?
She hasn't gone into that yet. No, she still uses her cards.
Because you were using her as an example. So
Yeah.
All right, we've actually come to the closing part of this event. I really want to thank all three wonderful presenters, Jeanine, Tony, Kathleen. I know that everybody's going to be looking forward to all the materials they're going to be getting from my office in the next couple of days, because there's so much there and to think about and absorb and internalize into how we respond to these issues. And I also really appreciate several of you sort of saying, we're not actually supposed to feel guilty when we're the victims of crime. And we should really try to make sure we think through being cautious and not jumping into things and not questioning ourselves, but rather giving ourselves time to think before we act in so many of these situations. So I do want to remind everyone who's listening that we have 2 additional virtual events coming up. The first is a lunch hour housing series that will start next week. It's a series of sessions. So the first session is November 19th, and it's how to get my landlord to make repairs. The second session on the 21st is you've fallen behind on your rent. Now what? The third session on December 3rd is appearing in housing court without a lawyer. And session 4 is co-op and condo owners' rights and resources. So it's we call it a one upcoming event, but it's actually a whole series of lunch hour events. And then the second series I want to remind everyone about is my annual virtual older adults resource fair. We used to do them in real life, but we've realized since the pandemic, you can't really put 600 people in the same room. It's not actually safe for them. So we are breaking it up into 3 virtual sessions in December. And our first session is on December 6th, which will focus on making connections while solo and aging. Then we have the second day focusing on arts and cultural activities for older adults. And the last one, December 13th, legal resources for older adults. With that, I want to thank everybody again for being with us tonight. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving because that's coming up soon. And we'll see you at the next webinar or somewhere else in the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you
you.
too.
Thank you very much.